Honestly, these numbers are worse than I expected. No matter how I decided to put this video together today, it was not going to come off the way I wanted, because no matter what, it's kind of bad news. So I just thought I would give it to everyone straight today. Welcome back, and this is kind of like my intro where I say, MTG Moxman here, thanks again for hanging out with me on the channel. Now you know where you are, you know who I am, and now we can get to that unfortunate series of events. No, not the film. Alright, you guys out there, if you're new to my channel or if you've been around for more than a hot minute, you know I love Soldevy Excavations, and this all started on a live stream on Sunday. Some people made some comments, and before I knew it, my channel was buying out Soldevy Excavations again. You probably noticed a spike on a few other YouTubers' channels, but it started and originated yet again with my channel, because that's the card I like to buy, and I've been buying it for a very long time, all the way back to 2013, picking up copies when they were $4 and $5. That card's been as high as $44, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It isn't the price of the card, the value, the rarity. No, that's not what I'm here for. People are going to hate that card, love that card, do what they want. Welcome to my tinfoil hat army where I love the card. If you're on my channel, you probably own one. But Alliances, the actual set this card comes from, is a 180 million card set. That's what they estimate the number. And no, there's no true way of knowing. Wizards of the Coast doesn't release production numbers. But if you broke this down from the 180 million cards, and the booster packs by then, back then for this particular set were 12 card booster packs and 45 packs per box, still 540 cards, means there was roughly 333,000 booster boxes made of this set. If you went by that 180 million card print run, if you followed that. The set is broken down to a 144 card set. It's got 55 commons. We've got, well, I'm looking at it right here, 43 uncommons and 46 rares. There you go. I cheated. I looked at a cheat sheet right in front of you. That's how I feel about today's video. Now, when you think of this and you look at Soldevy, there's lots of reasons why I love the card. I played with it in my youth, but it's also a barometer I've been using for a very long time now to try to track and get information on what happens in the secondary market of cards. How rare is rare? How often are these cards still here? How much destruction has happened to old cards on the reserve list? There's 572 cards on that list. The best way of finding out how many are left is not by looking at dual lands. That's a valuable card and people recognize that value. The destruction and attrition that has happened to reserve list cards actually happened far before that. It would happen to the worthless, the lower end cards that nobody cared about that ended up in dumpsters, parents' collections thrown out, kids not playing anymore, throwing their cards in the trash. However you want to look at your storyline, a lot of cards ended up there. But how bad was it? That's why I started buying Soldevy Excavations as an adult. As a kid, I loved it. And when I was in my early 20s, I bought a few extra copies here and there because I remembered it from my youth. But when I started this channel, I started buying the card. And there's other cards I buy that I call channel cards, cards of my channel. The Trading Post, Kil'jaeden Outpost, Lodestone Bauble, and they're all from Alliances. And it's not just because I think that set has value. I really think it does. But it's the idea of how much damage has been done looking at a set like this. With this buyout that just happened, the channel here, buying those cards, buying 161 copies confirmed in that evening on Sunday night. So we bought 161. Do you know how much that moved the market on that card the next day? When MTG Market and other things caught on to what was going on. And by the way, this does not count individual LGSs I checked with. Okay? Those sales, although I've added them here, are not part of the schematic of information because places like Card Market probably didn't pick that up in their algorithm. Okay? Those are individual sales. If they did, it probably would have been even higher. The price went up 18.45% from that 160 copies. So that amount of copies jacked the market that high. It doesn't matter if it's played card or unplayed card. That's how the market went, oh, and reacted to that card being bought out. Now, the interesting thing is I have all kinds of images I can show you, right? I can go here and say, hey, take a look at this. To get an idea about how fragile some of these cards are, all you have to do is go looking to see how many copies you can visually find. So on Card Market, it's been sold out. TCG Player, a couple of copies left of Soldevi. 401 Games, it's sold out. Face-to-face games here locally is sold out. So that's interesting, right? But now let's take a look at Card Market. It's a massive site that has tons of different sellers. The entire count there is 935 copies available. 935. So if a player was so inclined and had deep pockets, there are less than 1,000 available copies if you include Card Market, eBay, and TCG Player. Less than 1,000 copies, which means at $25 a pop, we're only talking $25,000 to wipe out what's left of the available market. Assuming you could get in contact and buy every available copy, you're looking at around $25K. For some players, that's not a lot of money. For some people out there, it's a drop in the bucket or even less than that. And then what happens to that card? Do you think it'll be restocked? You think there's just tons sitting behind store shelves? But that's the interesting thing when you're trying to actually find the data on cards and on the set and how bad how fragile the reserve list really is. We said at the beginning of the video, this set had 180 million card print run. If you divided that down, 540 cards per box, that's 333,000 boxes, which means roughly 300,000 copies, give or take. Where are they? Because we've been trying to track them here on the channel. I've been pretty diligent about this. We know where 7,718 copies are. If we add the ones on Card Market and the leftovers from eBay and TCG, we're at around what? 8,700 and change. Where are the rest? It's an interesting question, problem to solve that can never be solved. And again, I'm not saying anybody has a desire to wipe out the market on this particular reserve list card or any other for that matter. But people like to collect. It's in our nature. And somebody who sees there's a low volume of copies available might say, hey, I remember that card. I'm going to go buy some. Or a person who just feels like spending cash for no other reason than to entertain themselves, and yes, that happens, goes out and buys. What will happen to certain reserve list cards over time without knowing the attrition rate is they're going to disappear. Eventually into collections. Eventually, I still think they'll end up in museums, complete sets, as part of pop culture history, which is Magic the Gathering. We're talking the 90s here. Who knows what the next 40, 50 years is going to bring to Magic the Gathering. But I am getting more and more certain that the reserve list is far more fragile than people realize. There are far fewer cards out there. Even with the consolidation of all the cards and collections put together, it is way less than what people think is actually out there. They think there's tons of cards, and let's face it, tons are worthless. They're not high-end cards. We're not talking about everyone going after and saying, I've got to have, I don't know what, Elvish Farmer. I'm just picking on him. I can't help myself. Throw Champion. There are lots of low-end reserve list cards that are probably tons in stock. But when they're $3 a card or $2 a card and somebody walks in and buys 500 for $1,000 and that card spikes a little bit and more get restocked and somebody else buys another 200 copies for $3 a piece, eventually it just starts disappearing. And no, there doesn't have to be a reason for these people to buy those cards. There doesn't have to be a reason. Sometimes there is no reason. But each time it happens, and every time I followed it for Soldevi, the well just doesn't refill the way it did before. It's the same as why when you look at old cards, anything old, in the reserve list, non-reserve list, just older cards, near mint cards from 2016, that phrase does not hold the same for 2023. I know a lot of you have been commenting on that when you get cards from Card Market, from TCG Player, like, hey, Moxman, does this look near mint to you? And I always say, no, it's not. I keep a tally of the cards I bought, especially Soldevi Excavations, the ones I bought in 2013, 2014, whenever I bought them by year and by classification. I tried to buy near mint, light played. They are nowhere near as good as they used to be because as the well runs dry, as these cards do start to run out and natural attrition from people adding to collections happens, what you start to see is less good quality copies. More of like, hey, this is a moderately played. We used to consider these like heavily played, but it's not that bad, so now it's moderate. And a moderate played, well, we're going to put that as light played. And a light played, that's the new near mint. And I'm not saying people are going to have to accept that, but that is what's going to happen. Because there's no way to look at the true near mints anymore. The stores don't keep those in stock. They've been collected. They've been bought. They've been added to people's personal collections. This whole thing as we know it, the reserve list, it may still stand for all time. But anytime somebody gets the inkling to go after a card, when they decide, oh, I really like, I don't know, Brain Geyser, and they throw money at the revised copies, the unlimited copies, collector edition, wherever they decide to buy into, there's only so many out there. And you really can notice it when you look at something like Soldevy Excavation. You can see that many copies drained from the market, it just isn't getting refilled. Not in the way it used to be. Which means there's only so many people looking through collections. There's only so many bulk sets you can look through to see if there's any copies inside. Eventually, some of these cards are actually going to be endangered, and it's like a species going extinct. They could actually not be available for somebody's collection anymore. There can come a day when somebody's playing Commander, you play that card and they go, I have never seen that card in my life. What is that? I told you at the beginning I would give it to you straight, and there was no easy way to go over all these facts. The other thing I want to mention here at the end of the video, before we close things off and I go get my nachos and cheese and sit down for the night and chill out with the family, Mrs. Mox and Minnie Mox, we don't know how many people are even reselling the same cards. This card count is based on nobody ever reselling. That's what I had. But I'm sure there are still hundreds of copies here that ended up going back onto TCG Player. So how many of these are reprintable sales? Sales that have happened multiple times. How many times do the same cards go up on the market? Another interesting fact we'll never really know. There's no real true way of telling. But like I said, I just know it's worse than I expected it to be. And it's not going to get better with age. It's going to get where time crushes everything. And that can be so disappointing for some players who may have wanted to always get their hands on some of these cards, or to a person with enough money, yeah, they can go looking for these cards and pay a top dollar to get them 20 years from now. But not everyone has that capacity to do so, or even the inclination, to be honest. Because a lot of these cards are considered low-end, they'll probably stay low-end prices for a long time. But the attrition rates on even low-end cards, it's way worse than people realize. It's brutal from what I'm seeing on the stat sheets here after tracking this card for a number of years. So, hey, that's the way I see it. That's the way I'm going to call it. Thanks again, everyone. You came, you hanged out, hung out. You hung out with me till the end. You made it this far. I appreciate you. I hope you appreciated the video and the data and the information here. And yes, I'm ever accumulating. I've done updates on this card a few times over the last couple of years, and I'll continue to do so. But this was a buyout initiated on my channel during a live stream. But this is the data now collected and the most recent results of what happens. 18.45% overnight. For 161 copies, that probably shouldn't be happening. It just shows how fragile a market like this is. What happens if people walked in and went on all kinds of websites and said, hey, let's just buy every dual land. Say somebody has deep pockets and can put $1 million out there. What would happen? Time will tell. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. Thanks for hanging out. More questions than answers, I know. Can't wait to see these comments tomorrow. All hail the army of Soldevy and everyone who joins my tinfoil hat army. I appreciate you guys. And thank you for getting me closer to 20,000 subs. We're going to get there one day. 20K. It's going to be awesome. I'll see you guys soon. Oh, you guys know it's true. You stuck around to the end. You made it all the way. And, of course, you're the fantastic patrons of the channel who support me each and every day. Thanks again to my awesome patrons. New, young, old. You're all still here. And Soldevy is there too. Soldevy Excavations could possibly go extinct and be held by the few powerful people out there of the tinfoil hat army? Well, who knew? Guys, thanks a lot for hanging out, man. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's put Soldevy Excavations in that comments section. It is worthy.